Good morning, and I'm Arunabha Nakamura from Japan. Very complicated, many times. And yes, this session is titled 5G Ecosystem, Chipset Infrastructure, Security Devices, Artificial Intelligence, and more. And as we discussed so much, and 5G will be used in the variety of the vertical industries and businesses. And on the other hand, ecosystem is very important, of course. And but in order to do that, to realize that real ecosystems for the many vertical industries, we need to take care. We need to consider many things like chipset or security and so on. So we need to treat very wide area on the issues to realize a real ecosystem for the vertical players. But maybe we can have some good insight or suggestions from the excellent panelists here. So let's try to have a presentation from each panelist. And originally we planned to invite 5 panelists, but unfortunately Mr. Che Cao from MIT China, he cannot join this panel, but other 4 panels are here. So, okay, so let's start the presentation. From first presenter is Dr. Sam Samuels, CTO Mobility Business Group, Cisco.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Hello, everyone. So this is the twilight of the conference, right? So it's got to be kind of interesting, otherwise you will fall asleep. So when I was asked to join this panel, I kind of wondered whether we really had the right 5G ecosystem at all. And what I've heard over the past 2 days is that maybe my postulation was correct, in the sense that everybody's saying, one way or another, that in order for 5G to be successful, we have to look at verticals. And fast forward to another talk, we have to be looking at verticals and so on and so forth. So that made me think, well, are we really looking at the right ecosystem at all? So the next few slides are kind of provocative, in the sense that if this works, haha. So we've said a lot of things. We said that 5G is about the customer experience. We've said it in various ways. Ultra low latency, customer experience, large bandwidth, customer experience. And then we come up with a graph, something like what you see here, which is, in order for 5G to have an ecosystem, it has to have spectrum, devices, bandwidth, business models, and low latency thrown in for good measure as well. And all of that is built on a silicon base. And everybody nods their head and says, yes, that's an excellent ecosystem. And that's a traditional message. But if 5G is to be successful, then are we really thinking about it being the right ecosystem? And the reason why I pose it this way is that the network, or the traditional view of a network, has moved. It's no longer the idea of moving bits from A to B. Really, it's the ability to get applications to communicate across a distance, right? So the iPhones, iPads, all these kind of devices are promoting more application usage. And the apps actually are talking to themselves as well, just for good measure, right? So that sort of makes me think that maybe, perhaps, we haven't got the right ecosystem. So that then led to the question, so why do you think, Sam, that we perhaps don't have the right ecosystem? Well, one of the key reasons behind that thought is that software is eating the world, right? So we've gone from devices which are very dedicated and inflexible, and we've actually gone to fungible devices. So the mere virtue of the fact that you have iPhones in your hand or Android equivalents sort of gives that. That's a very fungible platform. And then the other point is that, in actual fact, that fungible piece of equipment, the device, when mixed with a platform, is a very potential mix, a very potent mix. So if we look at the explosion of the iPhone itself, it went very quickly from just being applications that Apple wrote to applications that everybody wrote. And that's the kind of success we're looking for in 5G. Right, so then the question then becomes, well, how do we necessarily evolve an ecosystem that gets us to that point? And then when I mused over this, I realized very quickly that its usable APIs are at the heart of any kind of ecosystem of this nature. Right? And the reason for it is that the APIs themselves promote use of a platform like this. So if 5G is to be successful, then having the ability to interact with that platform is kind of a key component to success. Moreover, part of the postulation around 5G is that we open up new business models and we open up new services. But unless the network itself is easy to be used, it's unlikely that those services will materialize. So again, that harks back to the APIs themselves. So that led to a point at the bottom of this, this slide here, that unless the APIs are usable too, and there's another question in there as well that needs to be brought forward, then if the APIs are indeed usable, then you get to usable platform, then you get to a healthy ecosystem. That's sort of the inductive chain of reasoning that you have behind that. And the question for us is, as an industry, are we really promoting that? And if we are, then we're heading towards the right kind of ecosystem. Mercifully, I'm getting down to my last slide. There's a bit of a humor in this slide as well, right? So, the whole point of what I'm saying here is the following. For a successful ecosystem, and we are all in agreement that we want 5G to be successful, then it needs to be, 5G as a system, needs to be a platform with highly usable APIs. For us to be successful as a system again, we need to get to that usable platform pretty quickly, because if we don't, then you lose momentum behind people developing new services on top of such a platform. And then the final point of this sub-conclusion is that for us to be moving forward and successful in 5G, you need to focus on making it as simple as possible. If it's not simple, people won't use it. And then we end up in a rut where we are right now. If we achieve the 3 points above, my thinking is along the following lines, that we are empowering people to be more creative on such a platform, we're empowering innovation on such a platform, and then the material benefits of that platform will eventually come to us. There were many discussions yesterday that raised my eyebrows. In particular, governments, regions are trying to promote the use of 5G. In a sense, we're trying to shoehorn success, which is not a bad thing if you invested a lot of money into 5G. But at the end of the day, unless that system is easy to use, it's unlikely it will be successful. Right, so in other words, and here comes a pun, through the use of useful platforms, and I don't mean the shoes, we will get to a point where 5G is successful, but unless we have those APIs, that easy of use, then I doubt we'll have the right ecosystem around us to be successful. That's my point. Okay, that's 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next speaker is Mr. Emmanuel Dotaro, Director of ICT and Security Labs, Thales Communications and the Information System. Okay, thank you.
So, hello everybody. So, sorry, that's a good one. Next. As we're talking about the ecosystem, I wanted first to introduce a bit maybe Thales, because not everybody knows the Thales group. So we have the chance to be at the same time techno providers, products vendors, but also system integrator, which is a large part of our activity. And sometimes we are also verticals, because we are providing, for instance, the signaling system for the rail, or the C2 for the allows your aircraft to land on the airport, and so on. So we have a culture which is quite wide, and knowing a bit the requirements of the verticals. And here my company and our involvement in the 5G Infrastructure Association in Europe, but also in some other 5G PPP, like the PPP in Canada, allow us to have a kind of vision of this ecosystem and what is required by this ecosystem. And here the focus clearly is not on ENBB, as you can see. We are more focused on the B2B markets. We have some knowledge, very good knowledge about what is required in some other. Taking for instance the rail and the signaling that I was mentioning. And some days from now, you will have maybe the signaling transported by the 5G infrastructure. In this case, if you have a collision, it would be too late to say, "Oh, I forgot security." So who is in charge of that? And who is responsible for that? All those questions are still raised with not all the answers. And the point is that if you want to provide solution based on 5G for those verticals which are mission critical, you need to have security. If you don't have security, you won't have the possibility to sell anything, because in most of those areas, you have certifications requirements, so you cannot, for instance, signaling, as I was mentioning for the rail, you are allowed to do it over LTE in some countries in the world, but clearly not in all countries. So you cannot do whatever you want. You have to play with this dependency and the environment and the frameworks, all of those verticals. What we do in the association in Europe is trying to have interfaces with those vertical actors, and to be at the crossroad of the requirements coming from the verticals and what is given and provided by the pure players, meaning the pure 5G actors. So back to the security, because we need security for these mission critical applications. We have two dimensions in security for 5G and by 5G. In terms of technologies, clearly there is an impact of 5G, because the attack surface is much more bigger than before. From the hardware to the virtualization and virtualization, there are new issues coming with the technologies of 5G that has to be addressed. You have already a lot of work going on, but not everything is achieved, and security is a never-ending story, so you will have to play with that for years. And the going software has very good advantages in terms of flexibility, dynamicity, whatever, but in terms of security, sometimes it's also a drawback and some weakness, because the life cycle of the software, for instance, has some weaknesses to be addressed. We have this convergence of ICT and the operational technology. By operational technology, we mean IoT, the industry, and everything which is involved in the processes of the verticals. And so again, here we have mixing of different words, and you have to take into account the dependencies and the requirements coming from the different environment. Another remark, because we discussed that yesterday about the complexity of the systems. Yes, 5G is maybe more and more complex. I'm not sure it's more complex if you add the complexities of all the previous systems, but it's complex. And complexity is also a weakness. Just an example, there is a well-known attack on 4G. If you degrade the signal for the 4G, you will go to 3G and 2G. And if you do that, clearly you don't have the same security level for your communications. So again, with 5G, you will have more complex, automated, sophisticated processes to manage the spectrum, the interferences, and so on. Okay, but if you put something, an attack in the middle, you may destroy the entire services and the system. So this is something that has to be addressed from the technology point of view. This is not only about technology. 5G is coming with new patterns in terms of architectures that has to be addressed. So there's already some literature and things going on slicing. The 5G slice also comes with some specific security issues. Not only isolation, which is one, because you have to keep the confidentiality of the operation and on the data of your customers. But also it caused some weaknesses coming with the control of those slices. Before, when you wanted to change something in a network, you had to go through the BSS, the OSS, the LMS, the EMS, in order to change the configuration of a single node in your network. Now you open interface. We are talking about APIs, so there is a lot of advantages to give the power to some tenants and some people to manage part of the infrastructure through the APIs, but at the same time, it gives more power for the attackers. So you have also to balance this fact that it's more open, it's more flexible, but it also gives the opportunity for some attacks, and you have to address those attacks. Mobile edge cloud and IoT also change the picture as in terms of scalability and what is happening with the so-called CPS, cyber physical systems, which makes the attacks and the threats coming from both the physical and the cyber world. Last but not least, because this is here more opportunities for the security players and the ecosystem of the 5G, is to deliver the 5G as a service. And by the way, if you want to deliver the security worldwide or at the scale of your system, you need to deliver it as a service, because we don't have enough people or enough skilled people to address the problem in the pure players. So yes, there is new roles and new opportunities to bring some security components as a service into the overall picture. And so MSSP, Managed Security Service Providers, identity and authorization, and the key management, and a lot of security features may be delivered as a service in new patterns embedded into the big picture of the 5G. Also, we were talking about responsibility about the operators. You may have new roles coming from brokers or virtual operators which are in overlay of some other physical infrastructure providers. Just giving an example, if you want to interconnect all the sites of the UNO over the world, you need to rely on several operators. Clearly, one is not sufficient. If you want resilience and security, you need to have at least diversity of resources, so you need to rely on diverse owners of the physical infrastructure. So there is new roles here of brokers that can deliver a slice or 5G slice based on those physical infrastructure delivered by network operators, but also cloud service provider and so on, as it will take the role of the facing to the client, and for sure the same way delivering the right level of security. So security transformation, as we have overall digital transformation for the enterprise. This is a key component of the evolution. Something which where security is fully in the same line as the 5G and embedded in the 5G is the introduction of the new technologies. So here I'm talking about artificial intelligence. So everywhere where you have data that can be used and by the way shared between networking objective and security objective in order to detect attacks, anomalies in your networks, and so on, you may use it and introduce those technologies in the 5G context. So we're talking about software-defined security, which is clearly the companion of software-defined networks, and it has to be delivered in the same time and with the same dynamicity as you're deploying your system. Just giving an example, if before you had a physical system with very well-known boundaries, so it was quite static, so you can just put some security function and elements at the border of your system, and it was done. And security came afterward, after the deployment of your system. Now, if you want to deploy a dynamic system, virtualized system, that is controlled in a software way, you have to deploy security at the same time. In order to maintain the conditions of the security for your system. So here, software-defined security will use same tools, orchestration, security function virtualization, and so on, as a pure network functions, in order to deploy the security the same way, and it has to be smart. As well as 5G network has to be smart, the deployment of security has to be smart. I'm just moving forward. The ecosystem is quite large. And as I mentioned in the first slide, we have very diverse requirements coming from very diverse areas or verticals. One point is, as it was mentioned in the previous presentation, is that the open interface, the open APIs, which has to be made available in order to make some small companies, SMEs, come into this picture. If you want to have licorns, I also see that on some slides, you need to give the opportunity to those small companies to bring their value into the whole scope. And so one of the must-have is the availability and the openness of those APIs coming from the telcos, to be honest, because they are owning most of the infrastructure today, in order to allow this evolution and this maybe somehow revolution. And just talking about Thales business, we clearly envisage that our business, which was system integrator most of the time, coming towards service aggregation that will use third parties in terms of services in order to deliver what the customer is expecting at the end. So, standard regulation, as mentioned before, there are some open issues, and I will come back on my last slide, 1 minute left. We still have some gaps. We still have some challenges to cover this area, so that's why also we are mentioning that we don't have yet the full 5G, which is able to support every mission-critical application, for instance. The openness of the APIs, I mentioned it before. When you buy or you use a component in 5G, do you know if it's secure or not? If you're buying a 5G connectivity services, nothing is telling you if it's secure or not, except the marketing. So, but maybe it's maybe not sufficient. At least for some verticals, it's not sufficient. So you will have to provide some way to evaluate, to say this service, this 5G service, or this 5G component is something that can I trust, that I can use in order to deliver what is expected by the verticals at the end. In terms of liabilities, lawful interception, for instance, if you manage a slice, if you're a virtual operator of a slice, who is in charge of the lawful interception and will have to be responsible for that. Just to conclude, this is also about regulation, because here the authorities will play a role in order to challenge and to distribute the responsibility between the various actors of the ecosystems. I guess we have 5 seconds left. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next speaker is Dr. JunHwan, Director of Principal Researcher, ETRI. Floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm JunHwan. I'm a chairperson of Small Cell Working Group in 5G Forum. And today, I'm going to talk about the small cell ecosystem as one of the 5G infrastructures. Next. Okay. Yeah, thank you. This slide shows the history and futures of small cell products for 40 years. There are only BTSs and residential femto base station as a small cell type in 2G and 3G mobile networks. However, in 4G, there are more various types of small cell products that appears, such as residential femto, enterprise small cell, and outdoor small cell for rural and metro areas. So, what types of small cells will be available in 5G? 5G networks are considering more various service types such as eMBB, URLS, MMTC. These services will be used in vertical markets so that we can predict that 5G small cell will come more various small cell products. The most important usage of 5G small cell is eMBB services for increasing traffic capacity in dense areas. This slide shows the small cell deployment examples. 4G small cells was deployed in homes, in building, airport, hospital, campuses, and rural areas.